Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tiny Wanderland, part 15 of our story. First off, two things. The very first thing I want to say is this is going to take a little while, so please bear with me because I absolutely promise through all my craziness, rambling, and funny talk that at the end of this is a story you won't believe. So you can scroll to the end, but I'm not going to tell you where it is, so you're going to have to listen. But the story of this, what happened in this episode, builds on what happens in the end. We're literally going to cut out of the Tiny Wonderland and go into someone else's life for a minute. It's going to be really, really cool, so hope you'll stick around. Second thing I want to say is happy birthday to you. Okay, I can't sing, but anyway, this episode will feature photos and a story of the very birth of the Tiny Wanderer. Her beginnings started very humbly, and they weren't easy, believe me. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Literal blood, literal sweat, and literal tears. But I wanted you to know we are now safely in Arizona. We are at the bunker. We've made it all the way through Utah and all the craziness with getting the trailer over the mountains. We survived Kanab. We survived the Tetons. We survived Wyoming. We survived Yellowstone. We made it all the way back to Cedar. Now we're back here. So we've come full circle, everybody. It is now time to start building the Tiny Wanderer. Well, in a video that will be posted later on, not necessarily on this very specific video episode, you'll see some funny things about it, and we'll probably have a time lapse of that. But let's get into it. First up, I want to say that the very first thing I did with my trailer, you tear it down. Now again, this is the beginning, and when you start at the beginning, you have to go back to basics. So these first couple of photos are actually me just kind of figuring out my way through. That's me right there picking up all of the nails and screws that we had, came up on, and I don't know why, but my software is not clicking, so you're just gonna have to listen to the clicks. Sorry guys, I don't know what to do. All right, so basically what we're dealing with, just so you know, is you have to lay out a blueprint. And this was V1 or V0 of the blueprint of the Tiny Wanderer. And as you can see, things were very different than they turned out. But that's me. Looks like I'm plotting out another map. We visited a dealer, an RV dealer in Prescott Valley. There was one right there called Little Dealer, Little Prices. I'm going to just let these slides go by so you guys can decide what you think about that. These are just some pieces that we were, knowing we were going to need to do the conversion, but we hadn't actually purchased anything. I will say they were very helpful with the information they provided us. However, most of this stuff was extremely marked up, and pretty much anything with RVs is, so we've come to understand that. So what do you do if you need a lot of parts and accessories for RV stuff, and you need that to put that into your tiny home? Well, there's usually only one other place to look. And before I show you the next picture, I want you to know that most RVs, when they die, when they crash, or when they break, or when they set on fire, or people just get tired of them, they'll go to a RV dealer and they'll trade them in for a new one, so they can continue, being in debt and paying $70,000, $80,000 for a new RV, but whatever, they'll do that. The dealer knows they can't sell them, so the dealer sends them to these guys. This, my friends, is You Pick It. It is in Prescott Valley, Arizona. This is where a lot of RVs go to die. Now, there's all assortment of vehicles there, but in the very far back of the junkyard, and I do mean far back, like the very far back, there's like an RV boneyard. And me and Heather actually journeyed there. This video is going to encompass 2 different trips, so I didn't separate the videos and photos. I figured I'd just let you guys figure it out. This is a view of some of the RVs and buses and whatnot. Here's me apparently looking at a window that we might be able to use for the Tiny Wanderer. Inside the RV, there's Heather checking out RV. We're checking out some cabinets in this. Just those cabinets were really amazing. We didn't know what we'd have to do to get them off of the wall. It was a pretty messy situation, trust me. But here's us examining the cabinets some more cabinets in the bathroom. Some really cool artwork we found in this RV. It was really interesting to see that. So whoever had, owned this RV must have really loved it and took personal attention to it. Some outside views, water cover. That person obviously must have had a sense of humor. This is a great bumper sticker. Water connection, a couple views there. Me checking out a window. Now we got a sink. Here's Heather. Excuse me. There's Heather at the door. There's a ladder that we did eventually get, but we were not able to use. Another window, fuse box. Not even sure what that is. Oh, is it a window? It's yeah, it's a window. It's a back window. Sink. It looks like underneath a bed with some shocks on it. Some more views. Me just chilling in one of the RVs. Now we've got windows. Oh, toilet spotted. Cool, that toilet. Believe it or not, these toilets, they're Aqua Magics. They are still in use to this day. They go for about $135 to $175 online. But we picked ours up. This toilet, by the way, that you see Heather's hand on, is the actual toilet that is in the Tiny Wanderer now, and I think we got it for $10 or something like that. So that's just kind of examining water tanks. When you go to buy a tiny home or a cargo conversion or whatever schoolie, you're going to need water tanks, or you should have water tanks. If you do, they can be anywhere between $300 and $400 for a tank. But if you go to a place with an old RV and you look underneath the couches, underneath the cabinets, underneath the belly of the RV, you will find water tanks that some of them to this day still have the water in them when they were put in there, and they're in good condition. They just need to be taken out of the RV. Now, that in itself, guys, is a huge process. Here's me just kind of measuring, figuring things out. I guess Heather got a snapshot of me doing what I was doing there, but couldn't tell you what this is. Oh, this is a underneath view of the of one of the tanks, the black tanks. And I spent a lot of time looking at different RVs, looking under tanks and valves and connections and all sorts of fun stuff. As you can see, these things just are literally left here to die. Probably more pictures of, just different, I mean, we worked in this junkyard, guys, for about 3 days to extract what we did out of it. And so there is a lot of humor in this. We always started the day with a good breakfast because we knew we had to work hard in the junkyard. It was hot. It was sweaty. I tried to stay in good spirits. So did Heather. Thank you so much for your help, Heather, if you're listening. This is our little cart. We were allowed to bring in any tool as long as it didn't have a flame on it. So we would bring in tons of tools, hand tools, battery operated tools, you name it. There's just me goofing off, checking out an awning. What we would do is we would disassemble the RV. We would take our treasures, as I would say, and we would hide them inside of the engine compartments of old trucks. That way we could come back the next day. Back at the bunker area on the compound, exploring options for the inside. You can see here the floor has been removed. Time to, we layered the floor with something called Kills It, and it's like a primer base of latex. Essentially, it's like a wet latex. Now, true story, that of Kills It you see in this picture had not been used for like years, and Carl had purchased it in one of his estate sales or wherever he got it. I don't remember where he got it, but anyway, you can't use that stuff if it's not shook. So I transported that into Prescott Valley to the Home Depot, and I said, can you shake this for me? And the interesting story, the reason why I'm telling you guys this is funny, is because the Home Depot lady was like, that says flammable on it. I'm like, yeah, I know. She's like, I'm going to shake that for you, but I'm going to take my lunch break. So literally they put it in the shaker, and everyone from that part of the store went to the other side of the store. Needless to say, the Home Depot didn't blow up. Everything was fine. It shook, and we were able to use the Kills. But I thought you guys might find that kind of humorous because some of the crazy stuff that actually happens it's unbelievable. There's me and Carl. We're measuring out some sort of I don't know what we were doing there. We were measuring something. Looks like just probably the back side of the Tiny Wanderer, I should say. We took the axles. We were going to flip the axles to give us like 4 or 5 inches of height so we could put the tanks in underneath. Carl did assist with getting it up on its axles and the tires off. And then that was pretty much the end of Carl's contribution to this project. And I'll get into that in just a second. More putting kills in. Me and Heather went to Habitat for Humanity. It's called the Restore. And basically it's like stuff that they use in houses or they're going to use or they can't use, and they sell it for real cheap prices, guys. It was here that I found and fell in love with what would become the Tiny Wanderer's floor, walls, and ceiling. Yes, you heard it. Floors, walls, and ceiling. And yes, my name is not Austin Powers. So I bought, I think it was 20 boxes of this stuff for $85, and it turns out we looked at this up. This carpet goes for $3,500 for the amount that we bought. So you would say it was a steal, but getting it into the SUV later on and back to the compound to store was a project. I had to use, I'll get to that in a minute, so remind me if I forget. But I did put my down payment on it. Actually, I think I just purchased it outright and then said I'd be back in a couple days. Back to the Boneyard again. This time we're after the cabinets. We literally, guys, had to rip these cabinets off of the frame, which included cutting the roof of the RV off. Cutting the roof, literally. That's how well they were held on. We did manage to get them off. And then we were after the water tanks, and the important thing was to have enough water so that if we were boondocking or out on BLM land doing, the Tiny Wanderers projects, whatever, we would have enough water. So 20 gallons wasn't really working, 30 gallons wasn't really working, but we looked in this, I think it was a Allegra Bay, I can't remember, it was a big RV, and there was a 65-gallon water tank. Now, in this time, it's going to be you seeing me look at it and then you seeing me with it and thinking, oh, that was easy. It actually took about 4 hours and several batteries and sawzalls and grinders to cut away the frame underneath so that we could end up with what you see here. This tank is massive, and now to this day rests underneath the axle in a specially made basket out of steel that our welder Robert, who we will talk about later on in the Tiny Wanderer Adventures, made for us. Ladder, looks like hiding some more stuff, and there's some of our spoils that we got. We went to Yavapai Steel, and Yavapai Steel is just down the street from Prescott Valley. And Carl was going to reinforce the frame of the Tiny Wanderer with 1x1 steel. We didn't know it at the time. We weren't able to find this out until Utah. But the 1x1 steel that Carl had me purchase was actually called ornamental metal. That's how weak it was. So thank the Lord that Carl did not weld the Tiny Wanderer. More work inside. Underneath, all around, you name it, we were everywhere finding pieces. That's probably me on the phone with Robert, my welder, for the very first time. And this is a good point to stop and kind of tell you guys a little bit about what happened. I know this has been very long, and I'm really sorry, but I hope you guys have hung on with me. It's a great adventure, and I hope you are enjoying the adventure. And the music that they pick is good. So I'll try to keep this under a minute, okay? So essentially what happened was Carl was going to weld everything. He was going to weld the structure. He was going to build up the frame. He was going to weld the baskets. He was going to do everything we needed. He was a welder. But Carl was dealing with his dad, who was sick at the time. And due to COVID, no one could go visit his dad. His dad was in the nursing home down the street. And Carl was just overworked and stressed. And we kept trying to tell Carl we weren't going to stay there and, be on his property forever. We needed to, make forward progress. Finally, I decided Carl was not going to work, and there was a lot of fire bans in place in Arizona at the time because it was really hot and it was summer, and the fire department wouldn't let anyone weld outside. So I started calling around to local welders to find a shop, and I wasn't able to do that. And finally, that was when me and Heather started calling the Cedar City, back where we purchased this thing. And we called 12 welders. And out of 12 welders, Robert Keene was the only one that answered his phone from Utah Builders. And I didn't know it at the time, but he said, if you can get the trailer to Cedar City, I will work on your project. He's like, we normally don't work on small projects like this, but I will do this with you. You sound like a great guy. And Robert was the salt of the earth. He and I would become really close, and I miss him, and I hope to see him again soon. So that's the trailer just kind of hanging out there. One of the cabinets, not sure, just me goofing off. That was what was hanging off the back of the trailer when we installed the tank. That was the black tank that came out of one of the RVs. Just more drying, more painting, more arranging. You can see the tape where the windows were going to go. Just more views there. There's the tires put back on. Heather kind of moving around some of our stuff that we stowed in the trailer. Just more views of that. Okay, so here we went to a place called Alvarez Tire, and the guys there were awesome. They put on stronger tires. I think we have 12 ply on there now, and sold us a cheap spare tire, rims, so that we could keep the spare tire, which would be mounted later. So these are just shots of Alvarez Tire getting that done. And here's Carl moving the tiny home into its position for work. Some shots of the floodlights and whatnot there, and me researching some beds. I obviously wasn't going to put a Sealy Posturepedic in there, but we didn't, at the time we were just kind of, guessing everything. So that is a view of the top of the RV that we cut in half to cut the roof off to get the cabinet out. These were great. These would become the storage and also the supports for the bed. We picked them up in Prescott Valley, and they came with us to Utah. This is all the carpet, ladies and gentlemen, and how I was able to get all those into the SUV, I'll never understand. This is a picture of me in the SUV with the carpet in those totes. And check this out, just so you know, I couldn't actually use my mirrors. I had to use my dash cameras on my tablet to be able to make it back to the compound with all this carpet, because there was no visibility whatsoever. It was a scary ride. There's all the carpet being stored for later. I guess that's a picture of Yavapai steel. There's Carl getting some steel looking, there's some steel loading, loading up the steel. Heather, this is Heather bringing the toilet out from U-Picket. This is me testing the water tank for leaks and seeing how much water was in it. These next pictures were sent to Robert. So essentially what we wanted to do is we wanted to reinforce the ceiling, which, if any one of you are listening and you're going to do a CTC, the ceilings of an average cargo trailer holds between 150 and 200 pounds if you walk on the beams. If you walk in between the beams, you could be finding the shortcut down to the ground through your cargo trailer. We wanted to reinforce it so that the roof would carry 1,000 pounds. We did accomplish that, and we'll talk about that later, but that's just some pictures for Robert. We originally wanted to attach another trail hitch to the back of the trailer so that we could haul the dirt bike, and we were able to accomplish that as well. Welded propane tanks on hooks, propane cages on the front for the propane tanks, This is just kind of something we sent to Robert as a diagram of what we were trying to accomplish. That is the axle of the trailer off completely, and that's another picture of the axle. We won't get into any more about the Tiny Wanderer now. I want to introduce you to someone named Shanti. Now, I don't know Shanti personally, but this is the story I was telling you guys about. Shanti is the owner of one of the RVs that we actually salvaged the windows, the sink, the toilet, and a few other things out of. She's the former owner. Now, you're probably wondering how I know her. So that story is really cool. Recently, I was wandering through Instagram, and I was looking at cargo trailers and RVs and van lifers, whatever, and I stumbled on this picture. I'm just going to leave it up there for a minute. The top left picture is a picture of an RV that was, I'm guessing it was somewhere in Arizona or Utah. I'm not sure where that picture was taken. The other three are the pictures of the RV that we literally decimated. And if you look very carefully, you will see, as I did when I looked at this picture, that that indeed is the same vehicle. The other picture is a picture of a child, and looks like they're cooking something on a stove, and you can see what looks like a bed, like a little hideaway for a bed up top. If you look, you can't see the cabinets, but you can see in this picture where a stove and a sink could be. Again, confirming that the RV that we had literally leveled was the same RV that I had just found on this woman's Instagram. So needless to say, I messaged her, and she has a story, and I'm going to tell you guys that story now. Here's a picture of the RV when she last saw it. And before I go any further, I want to tell you guys, Shanti says on December 26th of 2019 on a highway in Sedona, Arizona, her brakes went out when she was going down a hill, and she crashed the RV, but everyone was okay with only minor scratches. The RV actually fell off the tow truck when they were taking it away. Shanti said she cried so much because she loved the RV. I guess the RV's name was known as Guinevere. Shanti is a full-time nomad and has a beautiful daughter. The story picks up where we discovered that wreck in a boneyard in Prescott Valley. And then I discovered its former owner while browsing some RV life and van dweller Instagram photos. The connection was made, and well, that's that. Oh, by the way, the artwork you saw earlier, the photos, that was her sister's. The final photos are of Guinevere before her wreck. I want you to check out her very artistic view of life on her Instagram. You can find her at Shanti_the Roadrunner. That's at SHANTI_THEROADRUNNER. And don't forget to check out the Tiny Wanderland on Instagram while you're at it. If we're lucky enough for the Tiny Wanderer to cross paths with this magic soul out there, we will post about it someday. And here, for now, we wish her well. And on with the story. Here is a picture of Guinevere in one of the most beautiful settings we could ever see. Now, guys, I'm going to close with a special prayer for all of you guys. I hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying safe during this crazy time. You now know the beginning and the start of the Tiny Wanderer, and you even get to know about Shanti, who is an incredible magical spirit, and I would love to meet her someday. Up next, guys, in episode, I believe, 16, if I'm keeping track. I've lost track, I'm sorry. Episode 16 is going to be a little dark, and it's going to go quickly, but there is a story. All I can tell you as a preview is that soon, due to circumstances out of our control, I would be facing down the barrel of a loaded gun over my tiny home. I'll see you guys next time in episode 16. Stay safe and God bless.